Ladies and gentlemen, I am Redfish.
And I'm Rebo Hustle.
And you are watching a special edition of the Off the Dome Sports Podcast, where today we will go into the LSU baseball breakdown in the SEC tournament and beyond. If you like what you see here, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as follow us on social media, X, formerly known as Twitter, _Dome Pod, as well as the No Network, the network that we partner with to bring you all Louisiana sports and national sports content. You can see it there in the bottom left-hand corner. That's the No, K-N-E, A-U-X. It's the only way to spell it, @BeinTheKnow. Like I said, if you like what you see here, make sure to follow us, like, comment, subscribe, and tune in to see everything Louisiana sports. Getting into LSU baseball here. Today, we played Georgia in the first game of the SEC tournament and squeaked out a win. Reba Hustle. LSU baseball, something you're very passionate about. Talk to us about today's win.
Today's win. What a performance from one of my favorite Tigers in Josh Pearson. Came up to bat, runners on almost every time, and I believe he ended the game with 4 RBIs. Gage Jump had an amazing outing, which he has been doing for us the past 3-4 weeks. But yeah, nothing more to ask from a team that's begging to get into a regional than to beat one of the top 8 teams in the country.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia was a number 16 coming into this game today. I mean, you look at the SEC and they're stacked to the top. A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia. I mean, it's just a really heavy class of SEC powerhouses in college baseball, and for us to come in day one, first game of the entire tournament, and then win it 9-1 with bats from Josh Pearson, played really well. Michael Braswell had his first 3-hit day as a Tiger since he's gotten into that leadoff spot, which he's been incredible at, by the way. He's been doing really, really good since moving to the top of the lineup, and a guy who I know we want to talk about, not only what he did today, but what he did the past week in Tommy White. Break down what Tommy White did in that series sweep against Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, you start off the weekend going 3 for 3 with a home run and 2 doubles, which from Tommy White, batting out of the 2-hole, you're hoping somebody's on base just in general. Hopefully it's your leadoff in the first. That would make it even better. But it doesn't always work out that way, so his RBI numbers have not been as crazy as they were a year prior. But he's still Tommy White. He set out to do that this weekend. I am still one of the best third basemen in the country. I will come out and do it defensively, which you have not seen yet. And my bat is still legit. I will still take this 2-strike approach where I don't even take a stride step, and I will get a knock. And this past weekend, it was from the no stride, getting home runs.
Yeah, Tommy White, I think he batted like .615 in that Ole Miss series total. In the Sunday game, he had 2 home runs, including the grand slam that really put us over the top. And like you said, something that I really noticed with Tommy White is the defensive improvement. He was a guy who was kind of playing third base just to say he played a position when he moved on to the next level in the MLB, because he kind of fit like that DH mold where he was going to bat .350 and knock 30 home runs and 90 RBIs, but defensively he didn't quite find his footing at NC State before he moved on to Baton Rouge, and now he is one of the better defensive third basemen in the country. And still does it with his bat. I think he has over 20 home runs, sitting around 60 to 62 RBIs, including today's game. So, you know, he's still doing it with his bat after a very slow start to the season, and after battling through some injuries late last year. He's still showing why he was such a key part of the national championship team season just a year ago.
Yeah, and to reflect back on today, I believe yesterday evening, All-American list came out, and people were complaining that Tommy White was second-team All-American. Well, first-team All-American was Charlie Condon of the Georgia Bulldogs, and it's rightfully so. He slammed over 30 home runs, I think.
Yeah, broke the record in the BB Core era of home runs in a season. He's also, flashed some leather defensively, and he was batting .447 after 2 at-bats today because he went 0 for 2 to start the game. So the fact that he, didn't play well at all in today's LSU matchup and he's still batting over .440 shows you how special Charlie Condon has been this season.
Yeah, and I believe that the biggest advantage that LSU had today was the fact that the Hoover Park plays so big. Not only is the wall a little bit deeper, but the wind's always blowing in.
Yeah.
We made a couple plays on the track. I believe Larson made a jumping catch at the wall.
Larson had a jumping catch on the wall that, looked like it shook him up for a second, but he got back up. Mac Bingham had one about 2 to 3 feet away from the wall, which in Alex box would have been a home run. And I'm sure in Georgia's park it would have been a home run as well. So I think Georgia had 2 or 3 of those balls that could have been home runs, and that changes a 9-1 ball game to a 9-4, 9-5 ball game. And depending on momentum there, we may not even score 9 runs. So there's a lot, obviously, that you can take into factor when thinking about how did this game go for the Tigers. But all in all, it's a neutral game site. Both teams had the same advantages and disadvantages when playing in Hoover, and LSU ends up with an 8-run win against Georgia. They'll move on to play Kentucky in their next game. Kentucky, Kentucky's a really strange team in my opinion, because while they are, a top 5 team in RPI and a top 3 team in the SEC in baseball this season, they're kind of inconsistent. From the fact that they can sweep really good, they can sweep better and even higher ranking teams, but then also struggled against Vanderbilt, struggled against
Florida.
Arkansas, barely beat Florida in all 3 games that they played them. So you never know what you're going to get with this Kentucky team, but you will get bats, and that's something that Luke Holman is going to have to face when we play Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, we went into the season thinking Luke Holman was the ace, and he hit the ground running, that's for sure. And lately he's just been a little behind. I guess he's working from behind in counts. He's not always attacking from the start. And that can sometimes bite you, and it has for him, and that's why we kind of moved him down the list. And also, we moved him down the list because Gage Jump has been so good. And so, not a knock on Holman. I believe Holman can handle this Kentucky team. They're not a bunch of mashers, as far as I understand. It's not like they're going to pimp balls, especially not in Hoover.
They're not the Georgia offense that you rely on hitting 4 home runs a game, but they're really good at situational ball and moving people over.
Yeah, and I like Holman's matchup into that. I find Holman is a better ground ball pitcher than he is a strikeout guy, even though he did put up some great strikeout performances early in the year against like Missouri and all. But yeah, I think it's a great matchup for Holman. There's a chance that you can win this game, and you absolutely put your stamp that you are going to a regional. It is no question. But if you lose, you won today, you made it to the double elimination rounds of the SEC tournament. And so you lose here. South Carolina just won their game a couple hours ago. So you play against the loser of South Carolina, Arkansas. And I really think the South Carolina team isn't what they were last year. And last year they gave LSU a run for their money. This year they're a step or two slower. And behind Ethan Petrie, there's not much. And Bama got up early today, and through Ethan Petrie, they came back and won that game.
I think you know a little bit more than I do about teams outside of LSU. So specifically looking at this Kentucky matchup, if Holman can repeat what he did against teams like Mizzou, like you said, and what he did against Kentucky earlier on in the Houston Classic that they played in this season, it's a high chance that LSU can find enough runs to win this game against Kentucky. But it really depends on which Luke Holman that we do get, because if he can show up with those 9, 10, 11 strikeouts that we've seen out of Holman before and keep keep balls in play where the defense will make up for you. I think he can lead us into a victory against the Wildcats. It's just making sure that he doesn't fall behind, like you were saying, falling behind in counts, allowing walks, doubles in the gap, things that can really kill our momentum, both on the defensive and offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and what I like most, especially being we swept Ole Miss, is you're seeing some fight out of the Tigers. They're not just laying it down thinking the season's over. The past 2-3 weeks, I think it's since the loss to Southern, there's been a fire.
Yeah.
And they may not win every game. Like, they lost a strange one to Bama. We talked about that last week, and you had every right to win that game. But cookie crumbles the way it does, and here you are in the SEC tournament trying to prove your way into a regional, and this win against a top 6 team in Georgia kind of proves it.
Yeah. Looking at what live RPI is telling us, based on the data that we're pulling, RPI, we're sitting at about 25 on the live RPI, depending on other conference matchups, other conference championship matchups. We could move a little bit up or down, but the rankings that were put out prior to today's game, we were at 30, which is still right there to get us into a regional matchup. We have 14 SEC wins, 17 wins against top 50 teams. The situation right now is really, if we beat Kentucky, we're basically guaranteed a regional spot. And even if we don't, I think if we can keep it close against Kentucky, that will factor into the rankings to get us a 3 seed or 4 seed somewhere, either in the ACC or a lower seeded team, maybe like an Oregon State or an Oklahoma. So, looking forward to this Kentucky matchup. Thankfully, it is double elimination. So if we can win it, we'll keep on moving on. If not, we'll still get the chance to keep moving through this tournament. And we said it last week, and it looks like we were right. We were saying this Tigers team is getting hot, and a lot of the top teams might not play their hardest. They may just figure out what they need to figure out going into the regionals. So if there's a lower seeded team to get hot and make it through the SEC, kind of how A&M did last season, I think the Tigers have a chance this season.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom of the SEC, all the guys that are playing today are all pretty similar record-wise. 14 to 16 wins in the SEC. Tigers on the low end of that, and so they drew a tough matchup in Georgia, and they went out and proved that they can win a game. But yeah, I mean, other than us, I think Mississippi State and Vanderbilt have a chance at making a little run at it. Mississippi State plays real solid up the middle, but their pitching staff isn't as deep as I believe LSU's is, and that's saying a lot because going into the season we thought LSU had the deepest pitching staff in the country, and it is proven that they kind of only have 4 arms out of the pen that we can really rely on. And Vandy's just going to play solid ball. We know this. Vandy's got an ace pitcher. I can't remember his name, but the rest of the team's going to go out and play solid. We saw them in Houston, and even though they were down by 8 runs or something like that to Texas, they came back and won that game. And so I have a lot of faith in Vandy.
Yeah, Vandy's always a good baseball program. You can never count them out. I mean, they won a national championship, within the past 5 years, and every year that, even if they don't win a national championship, they're playing in a regional every single season. So you can never count out a team like Vandy. I think this is the year with such a highly loaded SEC class that we will see one of those lower seeded teams come along, catch fire, and make their way into a regional after winning the SEC tournament. Because you look at teams like Arkansas and A&M, Tennessee, Kentucky, they don't have anything to prove in this tournament. Whether they lose in their first game or they win the entire thing, it really won't change much for their RPI or where they'll be in a regional. They'll lock up a top 8 seed. They'll host a super. So for them, it doesn't have as much effect on their ranking. So you could definitely see a lower seeded team. Mississippi State, us, Vandy. If South Carolina can put some pieces together, a team like that to really make a run, win the SEC tourney, and find their way into a regional.
Yeah, the only higher seed out of the top 4 that I can see attempting to piece it together to prove that they're better than Arkansas and A&M is Tennessee. Tennessee has the pitching staff to do so, to go deep into this tournament and still be fresh for a regional. And they're ranked the lowest out of the top 4 there. And I think that they might feel as though they need to push for that 1 seed.
All in all, we'll keep updated on what LSU is doing, obviously, and we'll come back next week and talk about it, hopefully with a better idea of where we may end up in the postseason, whether that's a 4 seed, 3 seed in the regional, or even in the SEC tournament championship. So, like we said before this started, if you enjoyed what you listened to today, not only do we cover LSU baseball, but we talk all things LSU, the Saints, the Pelicans. We talk about national news when it's coming out. I'm sure we'll give some NBA Finals predictions once the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals wrap up. So I think it's going to be a really fun time and a fun offseason where we can talk about a lot of different things in the sports world. I know we want to talk about fantasy football coming up because Rebo Hustle and I have been crunching the numbers, and it's only May. So lots of good content coming out of the Off the Dome studio. And we should have some new faces popping up on here pretty soon. So make sure to keep in tune for that as well. Like we said, if you like it, comment, subscribe here on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on X, _Dome Pod. And, of course, follow the Node Network for all things Louisiana sports. I am Redfish.
And I'm Rebo Hustle.
And we will see you next time.